Hey guys, Editor Zach here. I'm going to show up again at the end of the video just to give some closing thoughts, but I just wanted to preface this video because I know now I'm kind of rebranding back to Rivals, but I had an idea for a commentary style video and I wanted to get it out. So for the people who watch me from Marvel Rivals that aren't familiar with my commentary style content, a lot of it is heavier. This also goes for people who aren't familiar with my content at all and are maybe just finding me off of this video. This video is going to discuss some heavy stuff, including child sexual abuse as well as child abuse and potential abuses going on around the world. I'm not going to delve into any crazy conspiracy theories while I'm in this video, but I just wanted to preface and let you guys know that it is a pretty triggering topic, so if it's not something that you're comfortable with, do yourself a favor and click off. Maybe go watch one of my Rivals videos. Let's start the video. So, I'm going to keep this short and sweet, hopefully at least. I've just started writing the script for this video, and I don't intend for it to be long, but who knows. Regardless, if you've been on the internet at all in the last couple of weeks or so, you'd know that the DOJ has released millions of files related to the Jeffrey Epstein case. And if you don't know what that is, then I don't really know how you managed to find this little corner of the internet. Now, I could easily make a video going through the files, or I could make a video talking about Pizzagate, which has, suddenly become socially acceptable to speak on like many other conspiracy theories. I've seen a lot of people who simultaneously were calling me crazy, who have now waited until it's too late to say something, but those videos have already been made thousands of times over. I don't think there's much I can say without just coming off as a bitter, frustrated, and jaded man-child, so I decided neither of those videos were going to be made, at least not anytime soon. However, I do still have something for you guys today. If you've looked through all the files, I'm sure you've seen plenty of pictures of what our elites consider art, which is often just depictions of the demonic and satanic rituals that they act out, or more often than not, naked children disguised as art. Seeing these redacted images stirred something in me, and it reminded me of something I'd come across years ago that I hadn't seen many talking about. It's something that seriously makes me sick to my stomach to research and to have to look at. It's something that makes my skin crawl. Today we're going to be taking a look at the work of Jake and Dinos Chapman, two sculptors who specialize in what is considered the macabre, but even as I show you censored images, and this video will be heavily censored, I think you'll come to the same conclusion as me, that this isn't simply just art. This is degrading work made for the people who act out on these sick urges. It's almost as if they're bragging, it feels like to me. Why else would so many of these elite and powerful people collect such strange art? I want to add that this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are a lot of artists that do things like this where they just mask degrading and satanic art and actions to be sold to the people that are acting them out. We've kind of been convinced that these things are just art and so we should just accept it that way, but I don't feel like that. So without further ado, we're going to get into this. I'll give you guys a basic debrief on who the Chapmans are, and after that, I'll be going through their catalog of sold art pieces, describing and giving my thoughts on some of them. The truth is, most of these are so disturbing that I'm going to have very few words. The truth is, there are only so many times I can tell you guys that my stomach is turning before it just becomes repetitive. So please don't think that I'm taking any of this lightly just because I don't have a played-up reaction. I've had to view this content so much for this video, and as sick as it's made me, I think it's important to talk about and bring light to. So let's get started. Jake and Dinos Chapman are both British brothers and artists, Jake being born in 1966 and Dinos in 1962, making Dinos the older brother. The two of them were both members of the YBA, Young British Artists. Both of their parents had studied and acquired art degrees from London's Royal College of Art, their father going on to make a career as an art teacher. It was safe to say that these two had no choice but to be exposed to art at a young age, and seeing as both of their parents were interested enough to chase a degree, there's no doubt that their creativity was instilled in them early on. Some might even say it's in their blood. It wasn't until 1991 that the two of them began working under the name the Chapman Brothers, working for and alongside Gilbert and George as assistants to other renowned artists. The two of them would create shocking, grotesque sculptures and installations, often featuring naked child mannequins, Nazi imagery, and the desecration of historical art pieces. However, their work alongside Gilbert and George would eventually halt as the pair chose to leave recently in 2022 after 31 years of working together, Jake citing mutual disdain between the two set of artists and a lack of new ideas. It's no surprise that their shocking and grotesque sculptures have gained such traction and popularity among the people who could afford them. One of the sculptures that stood out to me the most was one of Stephen Hawking that had sold for £241,250, and that's the equivalent of $330,520 in the US. The taste and medium they shared in art certainly made them popular, as people are naturally morbidly curious and inclined to at least look at the work, but it's no surprise that the prices were so high, seeing that they were marketing towards the richest and most elite who collected art that reflect their secret desires and ungodly actions. They would go on to state that one of their biggest inspirations was a man by the name of Francisco Goya, specifically purchasing his Disaster of War complete set, now possessing multiple of his paintings with the sole goal of defacing them, adding puppies and clown heads onto each of the victims featured in the paintings. The two brothers would go on to say that all works of art are destructive by their nature because they destroy what precedes them. Goya was one of the first artists of the modern era to truly depict human terror and the atrocities that we've committed upon one another in art, with the intent of bringing it to light and making people uncomfortable, rather than just documenting what happened. Some even refer to him as the father of shock. Of course, the reception of this piece was extremely varied. Some loved it while many hated it. Watching who is considered one of the fathers of modern art's works being defaced for seemingly no reason other than to promote the shock and awe. Brian Sewell, an art critic with a renowned hatred of conceptualism, referred to it as an absurd work with absolutely no distinction. While on the other hand, the work managed to help the Chapmans tremendously, winning them their first major art prize of £25,000 when they accepted the Charles Wollaston Award for the most distinguished work in the Royal Academy Summer Exhibition. They would later go on to say that, "People seemed allergic to giving us prizes. Hopefully now we're going to be inundated with prizes. We want to win everything from Crufts, a British dog show, to the best rose at the flower show." One thing that's undeniable is the brothers' skill when it comes to manufacturing their paintings and their sculptures. While I hate to admit it, their work is impressive, and it makes me wildly uncomfortable. So taking away everything that I believe about their clientele, the brothers Grimm have certainly succeeded with their stated intentions when creating their art. Though as we go through this, I want you guys to ask yourself if it's worth it, if art can be this way to mean something more than just what it appears to be surface level. Is there a real reason for this art to exist, or is it simply just too far? Naturally, throughout their careers, controversy and scandals followed. They were seen as scandalous provocateurs, and critics often dismiss them as simply nihilistic jokers. But just as I said before, many critics would still sing praises of their technical skills and complex ideas that they always managed to bring to life. Notably, critic Robert Bloom said in 1996 that the Chapman look cuts deep into our own art world. I suspect that the Chapman world will go on spooking our lives. Royal Academy curator Norman Rosenthal likewise remarked that you had to admire how exceptionally well made it was. A very learned, very intelligent strategy. But it wasn't always praised mixed with controversy. After defacing Goya's work, Jake Chapman was attacked by a man named Aaron Barshark, a performance artist who would throw red paint all over Jake Chapman, the younger brother, during a public talk. In 2014, their exhibition, Piggyback, featured a pair of naked children in what most would consider a sexual display. One girl sticking her tongue out while the other rides her shoulders. They were removed from the Italian museum Maxi after a children's rights group complained of pedopornographic content. Critics like Johann Hari have also come out and made claims the pair were misogynistic and that their worldview was anti-enlightenment. It's no doubt these men used the controversy to fuel their image and their work. Hating them only brought them more attention, and denouncing them still had you talking about them. It just goes to show that what they say is true. As long as you can spin it, there's really no such thing as bad publicity. Now, I want to get into who's primarily purchasing these sculptures. The only notable name I could find, and oddly enough, one of his songs is playing on the radio while I type this, George Michaels, the singer of Careless Whispers among many other songs, purchased a piece titled Platinum Joey in 2014 from the Chapman brothers for $41,000 USD. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys a censored image of the sculpture that he purchased, and before I do, I want to remind everyone that while I am censoring it, these sculptures do not depict true nudity in a literal sense. The children depicted, their bodies are almost made to appear like mannequins. However, they are still children's bodies despite not featuring any anatomy, and it's still disturbing. This is a sculpture that the pop star purchased. Unfortunately, not every purchase is documented. This is one of the few I was able to find, and is the only celebrity buyer that I could find by name. The rest of these sculptures and art pieces were seemingly distributed and sold anonymously. I'm sure to many other celebrities and powerful people, but on paper, the biggest art pieces were sold to museums, major institutions, and of course, prominent private buyers, because who would want this coming back to them? Their auction record is incredibly strong, having sold their piece Two-Faced Cunt, made in 1995, for $125,000 in 2010. A fuckface mannequin was sold for $157,896 in 2010. And their rebuilt fucking hell piece will go on to make them about $10,275,262 in USD. I think that's about all there really is to say about the brothers. What more can I really say? I hope that I've laid out enough context for you guys as we step into this next, more personal and darker chapter of the video. I'm going to be going through their sold art gallery, noting the most disturbing pieces that I find, sharing them, censored of course, and giving my thoughts. Here we go. So, this website is called Christie's.com. If you search up Jake and Dennis Chapman and sort by sold, you will find all of these sculptures. Now, one of the first things I'm seeing is a little boy. The sculpture is titled Fuckface, and he has a large gaping hole for a mouth, and instead of a nose, he has an erect penis pointing up. Now, of course, I can't show that on screen, which is why I'm describing it to you guys, but it's just one of the many things that we're already seeing just on the first page. Of course, I'm going to have to do a lot of editing and censoring. So there are 102 results. The first one that shows up is a sculpture featuring Stephen Hawking standing on top of a mountain, and the title is Übermensch. Now, if you look up Übermensch, it's a German word, and it translates to essentially being like an ideology, something higher than religion, something higher than a cause, something you believe in, exponentially. It's your ultimate goal in a sense. That's pretty much the direct translation. It's something you truly believe in. And I'm a conspiracy theorist. My mind starts running. The first thing I think of when I see this is Stephen Hawking on top. Stephen Hawking was one of the most elite men in the world. Partnered with Jeffrey Epstein. He's on top, looking over, kind of in power. I'm probably reaching. I probably am, but it's the first thing that comes to mind. It's pretty notable to me. Now, of course, this was the one I mentioned earlier, fuckface. Sold for a high amount. We had mentioned it in the pre-context to the video, and it's just not pleasant to look at. It's a little boy with a penis for a face and a gaping hole, clearly implying something is going to happen to his mouth. It's very gross. This is what we had talked about, Goya's paintings, where the disasters of war were first featured. This seems to be the original works, slightly defaced. One of these seems to be a swastika made of severed human fingers, as well as a scrotum and a ball sack. Hanging man or woman, I can't really tell, as well as dismembered, decapitated corpses over here. Down in the bottom, it features the fuckface doll in the style of Goya. It looks like an old painting, but it's clearly made to be one of the same little boys with the gaping mouth and erect penis for a nose. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. I mean, I can't really even show hardly anything here. So I'm going to get through it quick. We see what looks to be about 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 girls, I guess you could say, all kind of meshed together. They're all naked, no anatomy, of course. Some of them are reaching up, their arms bent. They're just kind of folded in weird ways, and I guess I can show this. It's pretty disturbing to look at, but at the bottom, there's a girl's head that looks to be attached to an arm. One thing I also find really notable about these pictures is how grounded they are in what feels like a modern sense. This is wildly uncomfortable to talk about, of course, but I can see the shoes that these girls are wearing. They're completely naked other than their shoes, and the shoes are very clearly Nike shoes. So it almost feels kind of like an admittance. I don't know, that feels very intentional, very modern. So there are a couple on here that actually don't have images, which I find kind of weird. You can't view what they were, what was sold. So things like that, of course, I can't really say much on, but there are plenty of these. On this page, we have multiple sculptures of mutilated, dismembered, and castrated bodies. One of the arms is strung up. This looks very similar to one of the disaster of war paintings that we looked at earlier. Of course, you wouldn't know that because it's censored, but it looks as if this sculpture was meant to be a play on it. I don't know. This is one of the ones that I saw first when I first began looking into this, and it's kind of stood out to me exponentially. I want to say I can show this. It's not real gore, of course. It's just what looks to be like a torture table, honestly. You can see that we have what looks like a human brain hanging, as well as guts and a saw blade and chemicals, as well as what looks like a gas tank and a hammer connected to the saw blade. I don't know what's going on here, but it's wildly disturbing. I'll probably have to censor the gore bits, but y'all will be able to see the saw and the gas tank and chemicals, so. Oh, this is a full censor. I can't show any of this. To describe it, there are about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 girls, all naked, all wearing their shoes. Some of them upside down, and some of them featuring the fuck face, penis nose, and mouth. I'm gonna stop calling it fuck face, man, but that is what it's called, just to be clear. Again, some of them are being hung upside down on the other girl's shoulders. It looks like they're playing, for lack of a better word. I don't really want to look at this any longer, so we're going to go ahead and move on. This was one of their most popular works that sold for a very high amount. About 40,000 more British pounds than they were anticipating when they originally sold it. This is kind of irregular for their work, as they actually do feature a vagina. However, it's not anatomically correct. It's in between the heads of what look like conjoined twins. It's a little girl with 2 heads called Two-Faced Cunt, and they have a vagina in the middle of their head. So that kind of fuses them together. It's hard to look at pieces like this and imagine that it's not sexual or some type of gratification for these people. Again, these aren't fully illegal to own or possess or view, but I can't help but feel like I'm doing something wrong looking at this. So even though I said I wanted to go through the full catalog, I gotta admit that I'm probably gonna have to pack it up pretty soon. I don't think there's much more that I need to see or you guys need to see to understand that this type of art, even though I asked you guys to figure it out for yourself, I don't think this type of art has any place in our world. I don't think there's any reason, even if it has a deeper meaning, that it needs to exist. And I know I said that I was gonna cut it out, but I do want to go through a couple more that aren't as blatantly sexual and degenerate, I guess. This, of course, is, I can't show it, but it is a fuckface version of the Screamer, you know, the ooh guy, and he's holding the sides of his face just like the normal art, but instead of his normal screaming mouth that kind of look like the Scream face, he's got a large gaping hole for a mouth, which is a pretty common thing for these guys, it seems. To be completely honest, I had to go ahead and close it. I wanted to show you guys some more things, such as their regular art that was just, I guess, contemporary paintings, but nothing about their art is really regular, and I don't think I need to go through any more of those sculptures to show you guys the depravity of some of these artists and what they do. Now, I'm not going to go out and call Jake and Dino Chapman pedophiles or say that they're enabling pedophiles. It isn't lost to me that their clientele is primarily prominent private buyers. So with all that being said, I don't really know how to wrap up this video. If this was something that interested you, I mean, morbid curiosity, I can't blame you for clicking on the video. I hope you're doing okay with the descriptions of what I gave. I know you guys didn't see anything like I did, and I think people need to be exposed to these dark corners of the world that aren't talked about as much. So all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and log off, get this video edited, and I'll get it out for you guys as soon as I can. And as soon as I'm done doing that, I'm doing a little detox off the internet for a while, so I'll see you guys in a bit. What's going on, guys? Editor Zach here. I've recorded this about 4 times now. 2 times I realized my mic was muted, and the 3rd time I didn't like what I was saying, so I decided to go ahead and start over. But all I'm really doing is just adding a little bit of the script that didn't quite make it into the video. It's just thoughts that would have made it into the script but didn't pop into my head when I was writing it. And what I really want to talk about here is that we kind of need to start having some uncomfortable conversations about what's going on in front of us and around us. So obviously we know that our elites are in control and in power, and we know that they're doing these demonic satanic rituals where they're sacrificing and harming children and doing things I don't even want to say. We know this is true. But one thing I want to also talk about is how close to home this can also be. You know, we've kind of accepted that this stuff is kept behind closed doors where nobody's going to see it, so it's like, what can we really do? But the truth is, a lot of this is done on the surface web. We maybe think that it's all done on the dark web where it's hidden and, you know, encrypted and these people aren't going to be caught, but so much of it's done just in front of people's faces in just like hidden corners of the internet. Just for an example, Twitter about 5 or 6 years ago was one of the biggest hubs for trading child sexual abuse material. Mudahar even had to make a video about it. Wayfair had a scandal around the same time, or a few years before, where they were selling cabinets and tables and stuff marked as sold out for absurdly high prices that weren't even reasonable, and they were named after people, you know, they had human names. And now we fast forward to our modern times, one of the most popular websites in the world, one of the most moderated websites in the world, Reddit, is one of the biggest hubs for trading child sexual abuse material. I've talked to Alex Rosen, who's a friend of mine of the Predator Poachers, about it, and he says that most of the guys he catches that are trading stuff now are caught off either Reddit or Discord, or Telegram, of course, but they come to Telegram from Reddit or Discord usually. Discord as well is a huge problem with child grooming and child sexual exploitative content being surfaced around on the site. Again, you know, you're not going to come across this just using these sites because you have to go actively searching for it, but that doesn't mean it's not happening, and this doesn't mean that we can't remain vigilant and try to report these accounts if we find them and report them to the authorities if possible. And then on top of that, you know, if you have children, just looking out for them and checking their devices is the best thing you can do to ensure their safety, and just being vigilant and watching them in public, of course. If you're as sick as I am reading these files, and I know you probably haven't been feeling great these last couple days, it's definitely got me in a weird mood, which I'm trying to mediate by doing other things, but I felt like this video would at least be timely, and I feel like I can get a message out through it right here. There's not much of a message. At the end of the day, all I'm really saying is just be careful and watch out for the weak and the vulnerable who can't protect themselves. I'm not trying to moral grandstand or get on my soapbox. I mean, this is a basic human trait that we should all have, is to want to protect the weak and vulnerable. So remain vigilant. Remember that the stuff isn't just happening behind closed doors. It's done in front of us all the time. They're not trying to hide it. These people are almost proud of it. They're bragging. It's done in dark crevice corners of the internet that you're not going to see usually. But that doesn't mean we can't still acknowledge it's happening and try something. You know, I can't do anything, but if somebody watching this has connections and can somehow get law enforcement involved, then, you know, that's a tremendous thing. I don't have the time, and I'm not the Punisher. I'm not going to go on Reddit searching this stuff to try and get these people caught. Alex Rosen does a great job at that. He's doing it perfectly. So, all that being said, I kind of lost the plot rambling here. This was unscripted, so I'm going to go ahead and end the video, get back to editing. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.